Hello and welcome back to Supposedly Fun. My name is Greg. We are done with July. We are into August. I'm doing this a little late, but I need to wrap up the month of reading for July, talk about the things that I have read. I've already talked about all of these in Friday Reads videos, but I will do a little summary of each and my impression of it. And I am going to talk about my reading plans, and I am excited about those. This was not as good of a reading month as June was. I got a lot of books done in the month of June, but I slowed down a bit in July, and I slowed down for two reasons. The first one is this guy right here, Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. I started reading this in July for my Pulitzer Prize project, and it ate up all of my print reading time until I took a little tiny break at the end of the month. But that's really going to come into play when we do August and when I do my Friday reads for this week, because I ended up only finishing one other print book in the month of July, and we'll get to that in a moment. But this ate up a lot of my time. It ate up a lot of my energy. And if you follow along with my Friday reads videos, you know that it has been a journey, and I have been going a bit slowly. I am only at the halfway point, and I am taking a little bit of a breather right now. So in August, I will have to get back to this. That's part one of my August reading plans, but this ate up a lot of oxygen this month. The other thing that happened is that I tore through a bunch of audiobooks in the month of June and in early July. And then I sort of lost the will. It's not that they were bad. I didn't have a run of bad luck. It's just that suddenly I wasn't so into the idea of starting a new audiobook. I started doing podcasts and things like that, and honestly sometimes just sitting in silence, which was a bit of a nice break. So at the end of the month, I finished 5 books in the month of July, 6 I haven't decided how much one of them counts yet. So right now I'm going to say 5, but there are 6. And all of them are books that I do not have a copy of. The first one was Whereabouts by Jhumpa Lahiri. I got this from the library. I have read every fiction book that Jhumpa Lahiri has put out, so this one was not going to be the one that broke the spell. It is a departure from her previous books, but it is a really welcome departure, which I wouldn't necessarily have anticipated is something that I would feel. I liked her writing, even though I don't remember anything about the lowland. It might as well not exist. I might as well not have read it. I don't remember anything about it. And I've really loved her writing and her stories, and I didn't think I needed a break, but this is a sort of a departure. It almost takes a Jenny Awful direction because the plot doesn't really matter. The setup for it is that you have a woman in Italy, and in each chapter is a short little burst named after a location, like at the museum, something like that. And as she goes about her life, you start to kind of get to know where she is and get the sense that she is at something of a juncture in her life. And you get to see how she is deciding what the next phase of her life is going to look like and what matters to her and what she has been missing and what she wants. And it comes together really beautifully, I think better than some of Jenny Awful's work, to be honest. And I enjoyed it a great deal, and I look forward to what she's doing next. It is an interesting book as well, because it is written in Italian, and then Jhumpa Lahiri herself translated it into English. So it is a translated work, but by an author who usually writes in English. And I thought that was a very interesting approach, and I really enjoyed the book. I would recommend it. The next one is A Serving of Scandal by Prue, Leith. My neighbor loaned me this book a while ago. I want to say somewhere just after the holidays, and I finally got around to it. She said it was just kind of a dumb, funny book, and I didn't really like it. I had kind of picked it up thinking it would be a fun, entertaining book, and I just really aggressively disliked the 2 primary characters in the book. One of them is the world's worst caterer, and the other one is, remember, he's sort of like the Secretary of State for the UK, and he's just a terrible person. He has daughters that he feels like should fawn over him. He has this wife who's written like a cartoon villain to be like a bad wife, and it's just a bit of an irritating book. So I will continue to enjoy Prue Leith on Bake Off, but I don't think I will be revisiting her writing anytime soon. So I'm going to leave that one alone. And I even skimmed the last part of the book, to be honest. I just kind of tore my way through the last 100 pages of the book or so to see what happens in the end and if anything happened along the way, and I don't feel like I missed anything by doing that. The next book was wildly successful. It was Hidden Valley Road, Inside the Mind of an American Family by Robert Kolker. This is about a family who had 12 kids, 10 boys and 2 girls, I believe, and I think 8 of the 10 boys ended up being diagnosed with schizophrenia. And it's about the journey of the understanding of schizophrenia and mental health in general from the time when these kids were born to the present, and that part alone is kind of wild and interesting. Of course, our society being what it is, mental health was blamed on the mother at the time that a lot of these children were born. So when they had one son who was diagnosed with schizophrenia around the time he was in his early 20s, the doctors immediately sort of looked to the mother and were like, well, what did you do to him? And she's like, I didn't do anything. And then a second son is diagnosed, and they're like, well, really, what did you do to him? And then a third son, and they keep looking at her and wanting to study her, like, what did you do to these children? Which is wild. But it's also about family secrets and the damaging things family can do to each other as we try to protect each other and keep our secrets inside, and how I find that fascinating. If you follow along, I love fiction that does that, and this is nonfiction that really does a great job of that as well, because the parents try to cover up the oldest son's schizophrenia when he first has his break, but then when the second son starts to show signs that he is the same way, they don't tell people that they're aware of a problem. And then you see how the later children, as they grow up, start to get angry and resentful about that, because it's like, if you knew this, why would you not tell us? How could you not protect us? It's about a family that is damaged by its own secrets as well, and it's also damaged just by its own makeup. And I think it's a fascinating story. If you are a fan of Educated by Tara Westover, you will probably really like this book as well. It is very well written. It is very deep and interesting, and it moves along really well. I think this is going to be one of my favorite books of the year, no doubt. And I give it a very high recommendation if you can stomach that type of book. There are trigger warnings aplenty. There's a murder, a suicide, mental illness, obviously, sexual assault, all kinds of things in the book. After that, I needed something fun. So I looked online, and I'd been interested in Paul Rudnick for a while. He is the screenwriter of a movie called Jeffrey, which I absolutely love. And I was looking into other things he had done, and I found out he had written books. And Playing the Palace was one that came out recently. I think either last year or earlier this year. Don't remember which. And it is your standard rom-com with a gay couple at the center. You have a man who is sort of an event planner here in the United States, and he meets a Prince of England who is clearly sort of a William stand-in, but not really. And they get to know each other. They have this wild romance, and it's a genuinely funny book, which I had kind of expected, but I didn't think that it would be such a selling point of the book. It was wildly funny. It is hard for a book to make me laugh out loud, and this book did it in a lot of different places. So I really enjoyed that. It was exactly what I needed at that point in time, which was a break from the heavy, heavy seriousness of Hidden Valley Road, which I loved, but was really heavy. And Playing the Palace was a perfect sort of palate cleanser, so I could get my emotions back to baseline. And then it just so happened that You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson popped up, and I was scrolling through audiobook options on Scribd that I have saved, and I accidentally hit play. So I chose this book by accident, but it worked out. I don't think I would have selected a book that was kind of in the same vein as Playing the Palace. It's not really. It's a YA book. It also includes details about like race and things like that. So it's doing something very different, but it is sort of light and rom-com-ish. And I don't think I would have gone in that direction twice in a row, but I did, and it's fine. So I just kind of had that little accident where I hit play and I leaned into it. And it was a really good book. I enjoyed it. It's similar to the way I enjoyed Camp by L.C. Rosen. It's nice to know that books like this exist. And it's sort of sad that they did not exist when I was in the age range for them. But I'm not going to be bitter about it because I'm just happy that they exist now. This one is about a woman who is in high school and she wants to go to a particular school, but she's counting on a scholarship in order to do it. And when she doesn't get that scholarship, she resorts to the prom because she goes to this very wealthy school. And although she's not wealthy herself, she has to sort of keep up with her fellow students. And because this school is so into the prom, there's a scholarship attached to being prom king or prom queen. So if she gets the scholarship for being prom queen, she can go to the school that she wants. And of course, as she is running and campaigning for prom queen, she meets a new girl to the school who is also running for prom queen and who she starts up a flirtation with. And it's this really sweet, cute romance. It is about race and money and a lot of complicated issues. And it's about expectation and paying for college and economics. Difficult things you don't typically find in a rom-com, but it worked. And I think it was done really well. So I enjoyed that. The only other book that I finished in July, and this is the one I kind of struggle with whether or not I should count it, is Effin Birds, A Field Guide to Identification by Aaron Reynolds. If you don't follow this account on Instagram, please go follow this account on Instagram. I get so much amusement out of seeing their posts, which are all memes of birds saying rude things. You can see one right there on the cover. I love it. I love everything about it. So basically there are a bunch of descriptions of birds in here that are funny. Let me see if I can find one that's not overly rude. Recognizant duck. The recognizant duck is keenly attuned to the emotional makeup of a room and therefore knows exactly when it's time to take off. Habitat. It left the party a vital 15 minutes before you did. Identifying characteristics. It leaves a trail of quizzical, "She was just here!" exclamations in its wake. Which is fun. But there's only really one or two of those per page, so I kind of struggle with the idea of if this is something I just diverted my attention with to escape Gone with the Wind, or if this is something I should say that I read. So I'm going to think about that a little more, but for the sake of inclusion, it is something that I finished in the month of July, so here it is for you. Now, if you follow along, you know that I don't really do TBRs. I'm terrible at them. Every time I set myself a TBR, I prefer to jump off in different directions and kind of mood read my way through the world and pick and choose in the moment what I will read next. And that's why I have the leniency to accidentally hit play on You Should See Me in a Crown and say, okay, I'll do this. Something like that. And then I can finish Hidden Valley Road and say, you know what, I need something light and fun and airy, and pick up Playing the Palace because I haven't set a list for myself and I can ping pong my way around. So I don't really have a set TBR for August, but I do have a pile of possibilities, which is how I am thinking about TBRs from now on instead. So I'm going to continue with Gone with the Wind, which is before my Pulitzer Prize project. The reason I've been struggling with this is that Margaret Mitchell tells a great story. It's a very romantic, adventurous story. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with what it's about, so I don't even need to tell you. It's also famous because of the movie. But there's a lot of racism under the surface of this book, and I've been struggling with that. And to be honest, I've gotten a bunch of comments that have said things to the effect of the racism shouldn't matter because it's a product of its time. And I'm going to be fully honest with you, that kind of thinking wears me out because Margaret Mitchell very much wrote this as a piece of propaganda for the South. So dismissing it as a product of its time is somewhat irresponsible. You know, I wouldn't want our time defined by people who are like the Proud Boys. So I don't think it's fair to dismiss this book as a product of its time when Margaret Mitchell was trying to do something very specific and she succeeded. So I am struggling with that aspect and with the expectation that people have. I am going to try to plunge ahead because this is for my Pulitzer Prize project. I want to finish it for that. but I will fully admit I'm struggling with it right now. And I'm only at the halfway point. So I am going to make a run at the reconstruction point. I need a break. So I did Effin Birds, and I did a different book that I will talk about in my Friday Reads video, and I am just about to start a different book as well. So this is going to be my big project for August now as well, and we'll see what happens with it, because if I don't finish a book for the Pulitzer Prize project, it's not the end of the world. I may, worst comes to worst, try to skim through a bunch of the back half pages. I've seen the movie, so I'm already familiar with the story. I feel like a bit of obligation to do the reading, because it's really only as you're going page by page, line by line, that you find a lot of the, oh, that's racist. Some of it slaps you in the face, but some of it is really in the nuanced implications of what's going on. So I feel like I already have enough evidence for it on the one hand, but on the other, I feel like I should keep going. So I'm going to see how this goes and where I end up on it. The only other book I have a specific plan for in August is Love Medicine by Louise Erdrich. This is something that Britta Bowler and I are planning to do a buddy read of. She has read it before, but in the wake of Louise Erdrich winning the Pulitzer Prize for The Night Watchman, she said that she would be happy to read it again, and I have not read it. I have read, The Night Watchman, La Rose, Plague of Doves, and The Roundhouse by Louise Erdrich, and I have not read Love Medicine, which is probably the book that put her on the map. It was published in 1984. That's a lot earlier than I would have expected. But there you go. And it's something I've been really looking forward to, because I am eager to try this writing of Louise Erdrich. I've enjoyed her other books to varying levels, but overall, I really appreciate them. So it'll be interesting to get into this. Britta has kindly given me the first half of the month to see what I can do with Gone with the Wind. And then I was also thinking of a buddy read. Originally, I was going to try to do Love Medicine in the first half of August, and then The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin in the second half of August. But when I pushed Love Medicine back, Erica from The Broken Spine was kind enough to say that we can push this to September. So this is not part of my August pile of possibilities. I'm just putting it back on the radar because this is something that I had wanted to read last year and didn't get around to. So it's coming. In terms of other things, I actually don't have the dust jacket on the book that I'm going to pick up next to distract myself from Gone with the Wind. So if you follow along, you are aware that I am doing a sort of reading challenge for the Montana Book Company, where they list a couple of things, almost like a bingo card that you have to check off. And one of them is a Latinx author. And I have read Latinx authors in 2021, but I've used them to fill different categories. So I need one specifically for this. And after I did my book haul for July last week, which I will link down below if I remember, I got a copy of Like Water for Chocolate by Laura Esquivel, and that counts. So I don't have the dust jacket, but I figure I will get this. I think it'll be a quick read, because looking at the font size, the size of the chapters, the fact that each chapter is a recipe, I think I can probably tear my way through this really quickly, and then I have something done on my checklist, and hopefully I will be refreshed to dive back into Gone with the Wind. But again, we will see how that goes. I finished a graphic novel, but again, I will talk about that in my Friday Reads video for this week. The only other book on my pile of possibilities, physical pile of possibilities, is There's No Such Thing as an Easy Job by Kikuko Tsumura. This is something I would like to try to fit in this month if I can, because August is Women in Translation Month, and Kikuko Tsumura has won a lot of literary prizes in Japan, but this is the first time that she has been translated into English. And I feel like that would be an interesting author to cross off my list. And I think it would be a fun book. The description of it kind of reminds me of Convenience Store Woman, and I enjoyed that book. So I feel like it would be a fun one, but it's a big old book. And I still have Gone with the Wind to deal with, and then the buddy read of Love Medicine coming up. So I might have to detour around this one. If I do, I will probably look for an audiobook that is in translation. I think at least one of the last 2 years, that is how I ended up getting my Women in Translation book done for August. but I would love to do something in August that would honor that. It may likely end up being an audiobook, just given the size of this book, the size of Gone with the Wind, and the fact that I have another buddy read coming up at the end of the month. I did start another audiobook this weekend, and I am currently working on it. It is another thing that was for my checklist for the Montana Book Company. I will talk about that in my Friday Reads video coming up, so stay tuned for that. I think I can probably leave it here for now. I would love to hear what you have read in July, what you've been loving, what you've been hating, what you've been doing. If you have recommendations based on these, anything you think I should prioritize, or anything like that, please put it in the comment section down below. As always, I really appreciate your time. It really does mean a lot to me, and I appreciate your comments if you leave those. I will be back. Until next time, happy reading.